guys, my name is Niña Padero and I'm here to discuss about digestive. Our cells need more oxygen. We need nutrients to sustain our bodily functions, which means we need to eat more food. Food must be broken down into tiny components that cells can use to energy productions. So how does it work? So guys, we will now discuss the digestive system. Digestive system can be split up into two parts. These are the alimentary canal or the gastrointestinal tract or the GI tract. Is it essentially one long, continuous to start out your mouth? When food goes in, it wide all the way down the body, at the end of the anus where some of the food comes back out. Along the way, much of the food is broken down into molecular fragments that can be absorbed through the lining of the tract and into the blood that surrounds. The rest of the digestive system is made up of accessory digestive organs like the teeth, tongue, gallbladder, salivary glands, liver, and pancreas, which are not part of the GI tract but have considerable role in digestion. All of these components are worked together to produce a sequence of 6 actions. First is the ingestion. This is the basic act of eating, meaning putting food into your mouth. Next is the propulsions. This begins when you swallow the food and continues with involuntary peristalsis when it's part with autonomic nervous system. These actions push food along the GI tract, down the pharynx and esophagus and down into the stomach, eventually continuing through intestines and out of the anus. This happens with the help of the actions called segmentations or in the GI tract. Third is the mechanical breakdown. It begins by using teeth and saliva and continues with further breakdown by digestive juices in the stomach. A very acidic environment due to the presence of gastric acid which contains hydrochloric acid. Is the digestion. Is this the part that more formally referred to as digestion? This is when enzymes go and perform highly directly chemical reactions to break down polymers in the food, break protein down into individual do amino acid, polysaccharide into individual monosaccharides and so forth. This category different from the early mechanical methods of breakdown. Next is everything broken down is absorption. As much as a candy, absorption will occur where all of these nutrients pass through the intestinal lining into the blood and lymph. Finally is the defecations. Are not absorbed of the body will be dealt during defecation. So now, let's start out by taking a closer look of these organs of this system. Most of these sees as the abdominophalbic cavity. The peritoneum is the membrane of this cavity and it is divided into visceral and parietal peritoneum. Covering the surfaces of these organs and the parietal peritoneum lining the body wall as the peritoneal cavity in between, containing serous fluid that lubricate the organs for mobility. Blood is supplied to these organs via the splanchnic circulation. Now, let's get closer look at the GI tract. As the whole, to see the basic structures that surrounds the lumen of a tract. The innermost layer is the mucosa, or the mucous membrane. This secretes digestive enzymes in the hormones into the tract and also absorb food into the blood. It is made into single columnar of epithelium, followed by the lamina propria made of loose inner connective tissue, and then the muscularis mucosa made of smooth muscle. Beyond this is the submucosa, which is made of areolar connective live tissue and fill up blood vessels, lymphatic vessels, lymphoid follicles, and nerve fibers. And we can see this entering through a mesentery. True digestive food just has to get this layer in order for nutrients to spread all over the body. Surrounding this layer is the muscularis externa, which prefers segmentations and peristalsis which help the food along three tracts that we discussed earlier. It is made of inner circular layer and an outer longitudinal muscle. Lastly, is continue to find the serosa. This is the areolar connective tissue, covered by single layer, the squamous epithelium cell that form a mesothelium. We should also know the ventric plexus, which are the submucosa, nerve plexus in the submucosa, and in the mesenteric plexus in the muscularis externa. These allow communications the GI tract and regulate digestive system cavity. Let's look at the accessory organs. We've already talked about the mouth, or the oral cavity, when discussing the sense of taste, so here we will just highlight the pictures of relevant to digestion. The walls are lined with stratified squamous epithelium, and the oral mucosa produces enzyme microfibril peptide called defenses. These regions need a large protections relevance. We can also see the hard and soft palate, the uvula, and the palatine tonsil. The tongue is made of skeletal muscle fibers. The tongue is made of skeletal muscle fibers and is secured to mouth by the lingual frenulum salivary glands. The salivary glands produces saliva that cleans the mouth, moistens and dissolves food, and contains enzymes that begins breaking down certain foods. Teeth help also this process in mastications or chewing, that which grounds falls down into smaller pieces. So, the teeth are very complicated. The growth and development of teeth requires into tutorials, and how let's continue down to the pharynx. Food will move through oropharynx and laryngopharynx just like an air dust when we breathe, but with the larynx covered by the epiglottis. The food will move to the esophagus. This is the muscular tube that joins the stomach at cardiac orifice within the abdominal cavity. The esophagus wall has the basic structures that we described earlier. Although, at these junctions with the stomach, a stratified squamous epithelium were changed into simple columnar epithelium were ideal for secretion. In the stomach, food will enter into the cardia, covered with phase called chyme. We can also see the dome fundus, the body, and the tonginal folds called rugae. We can see the gastric phase, which leads in the tubular gastric gland, which where the gastric juice is produced. This generate very acidic. The stomach is to form phyloric part. It made of phyloric canal and phyloric antrum, which ends at phyloric sphincter and leads into duodenum. A cecum, it travels through here into the small intestine. This where digestion is completed and almost all of the absorptions happens here in the small intestine. There are three sections. First is the duodenum. Second is the jejunum. Lastly is the ileum. The duodenum contains the hepatopancreatic ampulla, which is where the bile duct, delivering bile from the liver, and the main pancreatic duct, delivering pancreatic juice. From the pancreas join and merge the small intestine. The other juice sections are longer and hang in curves, joining the large intestine and the ileum valve. The small intestine is perfect for absorptions, nutrients, and it is very long to begin with a circular fold, finger-like villi, and much tinier microvilli amplified the observed surface area even more so. Crypt epithelium cells secrete intestinal juice, which contain mucus, help with the absorptions, the mucosa of the small intestine. It is also where we will find Feyer's patches, the lymphoid we learn about look at the lymphatic system. At this point, we should mention three more accessory organs which are associated with the small intestine. These are the liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. The liver performs many metabolic and regulatory tasks, but in the digestive context, its purpose is to produce bile, which enters at the duodenum. This yellow-green substance It breaks down fat for digestion. And the gallbladder is the tiny muscular sac joining the liver that serves mainly. At the liver, we see four primary lobes separated by ligaments. Zooming in more closely still, we see smaller units called liver lobule. These are the hexagonal structures made of cells. This is called the hepatocytes. Neglecting out of the central vein and in the portal triad in the corner, this name refers to the fact that consists of bile duct as well as the portal arteriole in the venule changing blood from the liver. Bile is flows to canaliculi towards the bile duct in the portal triads, eventually leaving the liver through the common hepatic duct towards the duodenum. Lastly, once food is made all the way to the smaller intestine, almost all the water and nutrients have been absorbed. And what remains is more or less indigestible once it enters the large intestine. And that frames the small intestine into three sides. This serve it's absorbing more water from food residues and also compact into fecal matter, which leads is eliminated from the body through the anus. The large intestine is comprised of three bands of smooth muscle called the niña coli, sacs called haustra, and tiny fat filled called the epiploic appendages. It is also split into regional subdivisions, this being the cecum, the appendix, colon, the rectum, and the anal canal. The cecum is the first sections when entering from the small intestine. Attached to this is the appendix, contains lymphoid tissue. The colon is split up into ascending colon, transverse colon, and descending colon. From obvious reason relating to the directions of travel during those segments, as well as sigmoid colon. This transverbed into the rectum. And finally, to the anus canal.